Coquitlam-Millardville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 3 weeks ago, I asked the Minister of Community Development to explain why the Auditor General for Local Government had only succeeded in producing one audit over 2 years at a cost of $5.2 million. The Minister told us that all was well. On March 9th, the Minister told the House, and I quote, "We are working with the Auditor General for Local Government on a revised plan," end quote. This morning, we learned that the Minister has sacked Bajaruda. So my question is to the Minister. Why did it take 3 weeks for her to come clean with British Columbians about the turmoil at the Premier's Pet project?
Minister of Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. It remains fundamentally important that we have a strong, functioning, accountable, and transparent Auditor General for Local Government Office. We remain disappointed by the performance and the lack of performance audits that have been achieved. And Honourable Speaker, that is why we have taken steps to address that, to ensure that the principles of the Auditor General for Local Government are achieved.
Hear, hear.
Coquitlam-Millardville on a supplemental.
Thank you. Well, disappointment is hardly being accountable. The Minister had no intention of telling British Columbians the truth about the waste and dysfunction at the Auditor General for Local Government Office until she was forced to. And today she tells us that she sacked Bajaruda on the advice she received from the Audit Council back on March 19th. But the truth is that the Minister knew about these problems for many months. The Audit Council asked her for help on February 6th. We understand that this was their second attempt to get the Minister's attention. So my question is to the Minister. Will she confirm that in January, the Audit Council told her that they had lost confidence in the Aglg?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and to the member opposite. Actually, some of the information is critically incorrect. And I think it's important for us to understand that it was necessary to ensure that we had a formal process, that we have worked through a process to evaluate and work with the Audit Council to resolve the lack of performance of the performance audits. And Honourable Speaker, I make no apology for ensuring that proper process was followed, that we are addressing human resource concerns, and that the proper, appropriate officials of public service agency was the appropriate, not a political person to make those decisions. We had a process that was necessary to follow. And Honourable Speaker, I would actually like to thank the member opposite for her work on this file, because Honourable Speaker, it's not too often in this House, Honourable Speaker, when we do have the opportunity to look at how we improve upon functions of this government. Honourable Speaker, we strongly believe in the Auditor General for Local Government. We understand that it was a grassroots...
Members.
Honourable Speaker, if I may, this was a grassroots movement that I was involved with in the 2000s, long before I was a minister. There were stakeholder groups from across British Columbia that understood the importance and the necessity of having an Auditor General for local government. This will provide tools, Honourable Speaker, for local governments, tools that they can share best practices, tools and abilities to really help support taxpayers achieve great value. Honourable Speaker, we believe in this. We had hoped for a different conclusion, but we are moving forward.
Hear, hear.
Member for Vancouver, Hastings.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, the Minister has said that she's disappointed by all this, but taxpayers don't really want her to be disappointed. They do want her to be accountable for the waste of $5.2 million. They want her to be responsible for the expensive legal fight that's pending. The minister has known for months that she had a mess on her hands, and she ignored the problem until it was raised in this House. To the minister, will she confirm that the Audit Council wrote her in January and told her they had lost confidence in the Auditor General for Local Government?
Minister for Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Again, the former Auditor General for Local Government's obstruction of an intended reviews that the Audit Council had been trying to seek with the Auditor General for Local Government for some time has created an intolerable work environment that has led to the decision of me to ask. I sought the Audit Council's recommendation regarding the removal of the Auditor General for Local Government. The Audit Council considered my request and issued a recommendation to remove the Auditor General for Local Government. And this morning, I recommended that the auditor's appointment be rescinded.
Member for Vancouver Hastings on a supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, the problem's this. This is a minister who has stood up in this House and told us that everything was fine. She covered up a report written by her Director of Human Resources that said the Premier's pet project was in turmoil. Then she said she was working cooperatively to put an end to the waste and dysfunction. Then she sacks Ms. Ruda and saddles the taxpayer with certainly many legal bills. So again to the minister, why did she ignore the Audit Council when they told her 3 months ago that this wasn't working and they had lost confidence in the Auditor General?
Minister for Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Honourable Speaker, thank you to the member opposite for the question. We followed proper procedure and the procedures outlined in this Act.
Member for Nanaimo.
Well, Honourable Speaker, this should come as no surprise to the government. The opposition warned the Premier that her pet project would turn into a mess, and sadly for taxpayers it has. So much for saving taxpayers' money. In 2012, we told the Premier that she should expand the role of the Auditor General and allow the office to provide advice to local government. Good advice, Honourable Speaker, not taken by the Premier. So rather than throw more money at this mess, will she finally take our advice and roll the Aglg into the office of the Auditor General?
Minister for Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. Adding this role to the Office of the Provincial Auditor was a consideration at the beginning. But after consulting with local governments and working through the mandate, it was decided that the current structure would be a better fit with the type of audits that would be undertaken. There's many of us who have local government experience, and we understand that the AGLG's performance audits are quite different than audits done by the current officer of the provincial auditor. That said, Honourable Speaker, it would absolutely be prudent at this time to take a look at the legislation and the different structures in case improvements can be made to preserving the independence of this office.
Member for Nanaimo on a supplemental.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. I think we heard the first glimmer of an apology from this government for wasting $5.2 million. But what the minister doesn't seem to understand, Honourable Speaker, is that she and this government and the Premier have failed the taxpayers of British Columbia. The Aglg fell apart under her watch. She's responsible for the $5.2 million. So again, to the minister, will she put an end to the Premier's pet project, roll this into the Auditor General's office like we told them to do 3 years ago?
Minister Minister for Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And in this time of transition, we will be looking at options to ensure that that the Auditor General for Local Government is the best structure to meet the mandate. Honourable Speaker, I would like to remind the members opposite that this was really a grassroots movement. It was a movement of stakeholders from across the province that looked at ways that we can improve and provide tools to local government to ensure accountability for taxpayers. Honourable Speaker, should we be evaluating, always analyzing and looking at ways that we can improve legislation and the way that we do things as government? That is what we should be doing as government, Honourable Speaker. I remain committed, I remain determined, and I remain focused to ensure that this Auditor General for Local Government's office is going to be successful.
Vancouver Point Grey.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. 3 years ago, the opposition told the government to roll this local government audit function into the Auditor General's office. The Auditor General has the capacity, the expertise, and it's a nationally respected office. Surely the minister isn't saying that she doesn't have confidence in our Auditor General to have the ability to do this job.
Minister for Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And in case what I said before wasn't heard clearly, I'll read the line again. And what it said, Honourable Speaker, is that the role, and this is important because this
Members.
the role of the Office of the Provincial Auditor was considered at the beginning, but after consulting, Honourable Speaker, with local governments, and working through the mandate, it was decided that the structure would be a better fit if this type of audit were undertaken. Honourable Speaker, we respect local governments, we listened to local governments, and we implemented what they asked.
Vancouver Point Grey on a supplemental. And members will come to order. Please continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm sure in the minister's lines it doesn't say that local government asked for this mess. Can the minister please stand up and explain exactly what it is about the Auditor General's office that is not compatible with doing audits of local governments in British Columbia?
Community, Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The process of implementing the Auditor General for Local Government was an exhaustive process that reached into every single community. Stakeholders right across British Columbia had the opportunity to put forward their ideas and recommendations on what an Auditor General for Local Government office would look like. Honourable Speaker, when options came forward to local governments and they were asked whether they would like to see the function of this office be within a provincial auditor or their own separate auditor for local government, they asked to work through a separate mandate, and it was their request to look at, versus the provincial Auditor General, to look at an independent performance audit office of the provincial auditor, and that is what we have implemented.
Member for Nelson Creston.
Well, Madam Speaker, I dare say that if anybody in this House looked up the word failed in the dictionary, they would see the Premier's pet project, a Auditor General of Local Government. Time and time again, we uncover more information from this minister, only to find out every step of the way she has utterly failed BC taxpayers and wasted $5.2 million, and that's just the start. Madam Speaker, legal fees are absolutely
question.
certain here. So my question is a simple one to the minister. Will the taxpayers be paying Ms. Ruta's legal bills?
Minister of Community Sport and Cultural Development.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you for the member opposite. Again, if I may correct the statement, this was this process was a grassroots movement of stakeholders from across British Columbia, Honourable Speaker. It was policy that was put forward. If you look at the BC Chamber of Commerce policy manuals from the 2000, they asked for a municipal officer of local government. Honourable Speaker, our government were the ones that listened to grassroots communities across British Columbia and implemented this very important office.